Hey guys, so just a real quick warning before this video starts. The sound in this one got really screwed up. I'm really sorry. It's totally my fault. I really apologize. So just a warning to headphone users especially, might want to turn the volume down a little bit because the sound bars do hit the top in a few bits coming up. Thanks. Hope you guys still enjoy the video.
G'day everyone and welcome back to the Big Swing Noting podcast, sending those barrels back to New South Wales since 2019, and we are back for the first Showtime Footy episode in a hot minute. It's a bit random. I don't really know why I decided I wanted to make this video, but I did, and it's my show so I can do whatever the hell I want. Basically, as you'll see by the title, Jamarra Ugle-Hagan is going to debut this weekend, which is so exciting. And basically, I just want to break it down and what it means, and I just want to have a couple rants because I'm, getting a bit annoyed by AFL community, as I typically do. And I thought, okay, well, where can I express this opinion? Because it's a useless battle, just battling in the comments of 7AFL and the like. Because quite frankly, I feel like not as many people watch footy as they actually say they do. Anyway, and that's fine. It's fine to not watch footy. It's fine to be a casual fan or whatever. It's fine to not know something. And I don't care if you have a different opinion than me. That's fine. But, don't act like for the draft exam. I'm not going to go off on that tangent, actually. Anyway, Jamarra Ugle-Hagan is going to debut. And it's very exciting. I was so high on Jamarra coming into this draft. My only question was on his work ethic and if he was committed enough to live up to his huge ceiling. Of course, he's been likened to Buddy Franklin coming into the draft. I don't really think he's quite like Buddy, but he is extremely athletic. He's got a crazy jump. If he reaches that type of ceiling, he will be undefendable in the long run. You'll have to be able to have a huge switch forward from another jumping key forward to put on him. I feel like in the future, if he does get to that magnitude, or you just get absolute the biggest body you can, like Shane Mumford, and just bash him the whole way out. That's sort of the only way I would think at his prime you would defend against Jamarra. But anyway, game 1 this weekend for the Dogs, which coincidentally against Lance Franklin and the Sydney Swans. Probably not the best game that he could have debuted. Swans match up pretty well against the Dogs forward line. They're just very tall, they're very athletic. So they might be able to compete with him. I was going to say and Norton, but Norton is out. Josh Bruce, I'm not sure how he would typically match up with him, but Jamarra Ugle-Hagan in that forward line generates so much offensive gravity. And I've seen so many comments when it was announced that Jamarra was going to debut, saying he's a spud, 10 possessions, 1 goal, he's not that good. And I kind of get it. He has been a little underwhelming in the VFL, but what I want to point out to you is a few things. One is his offensive gravity, as I was talking about. Jamarra Ugle-Hagan is such an offensive threat and such an athletic beast. You need to throw your best, most experienced defender, hugest body at him, and often that draws an extra defender to him, which opens the game up for someone like Josh Schache. You wonder why Josh Schache is having his best reserves year so far, and he absolutely dominates in the VFL, but then once he gets to the AFL, he's just sort of thereabouts. Well, not even. He's just, one of it is just because Josh Schache isn't that good, and it's quite unfortunate, but he's a very good reserve player. He's probably just not quite good enough to go to the to be at AFL level mainstay, which is unfortunate given how high he was drafted. 4 years ago now. Anyway, the reason why Josh Schache is having such a good reserves year, it's because of Jamarra Ugle-Hagan's offensive gravity. He draws so much of the defense to him because of his insane athletic ability. Jamarra has the potential to be one of the most athletic forwards of all time, if he reaches his ceiling and maximizes his marking capabilities, which is a whole nother topic. But for the moment, this is probably one of the more raw number one picks that we've seen in a long time. Before my time is probably when you would have seen the last one. But he doesn't necessarily have the most insane hands or the most insane goal kicking ability. He's a very good goal kicker and has like respectable hands, but he still has a lot to grow. Like relative for number one pick rise, he is still very raw. And that's why I want to make the point to everyone who hasn't watched VFL, which is fine, or you haven't watched Jamarra coming into his draft year, which is fine, like as well, because it was COVID affected, so I don't think he actually played once. But if you watched the Oakley Chargers before, the year before, then you would have seen him a bit there. What I want to make the point is he is still raw. So if he, like, I think there's a fair chance he won't have a good debut game, or he won't, like, the first few games of his career might not be that good. And what I ask you, because there's so much hate already going on for Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, which blows my mind, because he hasn't played a single AFL game yet, and it's not even his fault. If he was drafted by Adelaide, if he was drafted by Hawthorn, who else was at the bottom? North Melbourne, you know, he would have played like just about every game by now. And it's just because the Bulldogs forward line is so stacked. Like that's like people are knocking on him because he's number one pick and he's only just making his debut. It's because the Bulldogs have Aaron Norton and Josh Bruce. Josh Bruce was the question mark coming to this year. I was thinking, okay, maybe Jamarra can leap Josh Bruce, but Josh Bruce is third in the Coleman. Well, he's a bit lower now, but you know, you get the point. He's having a pretty insane year. Or yeah, he had a good stretch, exactly. So you can't drop Josh Bruce, is what I'm saying. And that's unfortunate for Ugle-Hagan, and he had to wait until a guy like Aaron Norton got injured. I think he got injured earlier this year as well, but they brought in Josh Shackey because he was in such good goal-kicking form. But a large part of Josh Shackey's goal-kicking ability in the VFL is because of Jamarra Ugle-Hagan's offensive gravity and offensive threat. And, you know, in his own right, Josh Shackey is still having a really good VFL year, and he probably, like, it's not all Jamarra. I'm not trying to, like, put him on this godly pedestal. But he does have a huge effect. So that's why, even though I don't think Josh Bruce necessarily matches up well against the Swans, he could be in for a bag. Because, although I'm not sure how they'll treat Jamarra, because they might just body him out and not send that many defenders to him. He might not have the same draw as he does in the reserves, but he will have that one day, and that's what I want everyone to be patient with, because if he can reach his peak, I wouldn't like him to Lance Franklin. He doesn't quite have the boot, doesn't quite have the swing that Lance Franklin has, but he will be the next Jamarra Ugle-Hagan, you know, and that's why I'm really excited to see Jamarra play in the number 22 jumper for Bulldogs this weekend against the Saints, because his ceiling is just that big. So my only worry is he won't be that dominant in the first few games, and that everyone just jumps on the hate bandwagon and says, oh, what a waste of a pick. He's kind of still raw-ish type, almost. And so, I don't want everyone to give up on him. That's all I'm saying. Is that all I'm going to say? No, let's go on for a bit more. I was going to split this into clips. The second bit I wanted to talk about was, there was a 7AFL post on Jason Horn. Finally, they posted about Jason Horn today. And I get like why people would be like, oh, that's not impressive. You know, like you look at his stats, 16 disposals, 5 tackles, 73% efficiency, and then the highlight they showed was him actually turning it over in the end, which wasn't his fault. You know, it doesn't paint the most like insane picture of him, but you know, it's fine to not follow the draft. Heaps of people don't, and that's totally okay. And if you do watch the draft and you do think Nick Dacos or Sam Darcy's number one, that's okay too. I disagree with you, but that's fine. We can have different opinions. That's cool. But what I don't like is when I go into the comments of this Jason Horn post and I see, they compare the stats, averaging 16 disposals and 0.5 goals a game. Dacos is averaging 40 disposals and a goal a game. Number one, and you will see this everywhere, Dacos plays in a significantly weaker league, which is against boys. And he has the full keys to that team, to that Oakley Chargers midfield, right? Jason Horn plays against former AFL players or budding AFL players, fully experienced guys, fully built guys, and he has to work his way just to even, like, get a good get a good opportunity to run through the midfield or into the forward line, right? He doesn't have the keys to that team because he isn't the star player. And you can't expect that because the SANFL is rivaling the VFL. I would probably say the SANFL is the highest quality league at the moment. That's my opinion, because you just get so many high quality footballers, retired footballers as well, coming into these standalone clubs in the reserves leagues, which I think is really good. It's really good to have those different pathways as well for someone like Jason Horn to really grow the potential for number one pick. Because if he is just in like the SANFL juniors, then he's not going to put up similar numbers to Dacos because their roles are so different, and I'll get to that in a second. But it allows him to prove his case and show that he's built for AFL level. Number two, what I want to talk about with this post is Nick Dacos and Jason Horn. They may be midfielders and they may go forwards, but they have totally different roles. Nick Dacos is a total inside midfielder, get the ball out, usually go backwards, and if he is going to take the game away from you, he'll try and take the game away from you just from getting the ball heaps. Jason Horn is not an in and under midfielder. He is like a runner. He's a hard-bodied, take the game on, and push it forwards, which I love. I love that. And it's something you can't necessarily teach, like the X factor, that goal offensive threat going through the midfield. Whereas, I don't want to say this, I don't want to take this the wrong way, because Nick Dacos is still a great prospect, don't get me wrong, but I feel like he's still replaceable, that in and under on baller. You can get guys that just get you possessions. They're in every draft. Whereas Jason Horn, I feel like, just has that little bit extra that you can't teach. He just has that natural ability. What did I want to say? Yeah, they got totally different roles, and that's also another reason why he has less than half of Dacos' possessions. He only averages 16 and half a goal. But Jason Horn is so much more of an offensive threat. He opens the game up a ton, which is huge for a guy like North Melbourne, for a team like North Melbourne to build around, If they have Jason Horn running through that midfield with, and taking up tricks from Cunnington and Jai Simpkin, that is so strong. And I would probably go as far to say as they might not finish last next year. Maybe. If they develop him right and they use him right. Because if they give him full midfield time, he's not going to be that guy. He just won't. And it just won't work like that. That's not who Jason Horn is. He is. You can play him off the half back. You can play him off the half forward flank. You can play him on the wing if you really wanted to. You can play him as a huge ruck rover. But he's not. Again, he's not necessarily a follower. Maybe he can be if you give the keys to the team, to him. But I don't know. I probably wouldn't put that to him. He's just more of that. Not a complimentary guy, because he's absolutely has a huge star potential. What was I going to say? Yeah, but he has this huge star potential, but if he's not, he's more of your run through the midfield rather than follow the ball, and just get those get the touches, get to it first. He's a guy that'll push it forwards, he'll belt it forwards, which is another reason why he has 73% efficiency. He takes the game on. He is kick first players, and especially midfielders, are huge. Tom Mitchell, my major criticism of him this year, and in the last couple of years, even in his Brownlow year, was handballed too much backwards and sideways, and he never kicked forward. He didn't make very good decisions. Last few games, he has turned it up. He is belting it forward at most opportunities, and he's opened the game up for Hawthorn. Why do you think it's a big reason why Hawthorn are now starting to look at maybe they're not such a riddled or a doomed team, they have some glimpse, and I think some of that does have to do with opening the game up, which is what Tom Mitchell has been doing more of in the last few weeks. That's just an example. Nick Dacos, he is really good. Don't get me wrong. He has an insane footy IQ. He reads the game so well. And again, it's something you can't teach, much like Jason Horn's star power and attack and offensive threat. But he's not a guy I would build around. personally. I think he'll win a Brownlow if he's in the right situation at Collingwood, which it's looking like it will open up for him. Especially if Pendlebury gets a couple years there, that's gonna be such a good mentorship, or it's so good for Dacos's development. And if he does reach that, I think he can win a Brownlow. But will that mean that he is going to be the best player in the league? I don't think so. Jason Horn, although they're not exactly the same, I would liken more to Dustin Martin. And I'm not saying he'll become Dustin Martin or they even play similar. It's just that he can open the game up like that. He can, when he is, I want to use the word barometer. When he's on, the team's on. He can kill you just through his weight of kicks. And if he gets 6 Jason Horn disposals, twice as valuable as 6 Nick Dacos disposals. Again, not a knock on Dacos, because getting to the ball first, so important. Hugely valuable. But I kind of liken it to Nathan Buckley, right? He could never take the game away from, incredible player, but he could never quite take the game away from you in crunch time in a grand final, which is why he wasn't a winner. He would just try and take the game away from you just by getting the ball consistently, and that's how he would punish you. But Michael Voss would step up and get the ball, maybe slightly less, but he would take the game on, and he would make those huge game-winning plays. And that's how he would devastate you. Again, not saying that exactly. I'm not saying that Dacos is Buckley and that Horn is Voss or anything like that. But that's just to put it into perspective, and that's how I would rank them. Darcy's another one. I would probably still have him at the 3 spot at the moment. I'm not sure. I'll have to watch some more of him, because I'll be honest, I've only watched a couple games of him in the NAB League at the moment. Or actually properly taking notice of him. He's cool. He's pretty raw. If he goes to the Dogs, I'm not sure that's honestly the best fit. If he goes to the Dogs, he's probably going to be down in defense, which is fine. That's where he's been for most of this NAB League season. But then he's really catapulted. The last month, I would say he's gone from, about the 20th best player in the pool to top 3. And I don't think he'll be a true contender in the battle for the number 1 pick between Dacos and Horn. But I think he's a pretty good. I think he will be if he keeps going at this huge threat, then maybe he could be in contention for the 2-3 or whatever, and he's not a huge step down. But I'll be interested to see if the Dogs actually match him, because that's 2 huge draft bid matches in 2 consecutive years, and I'm not sure that Darcy actually fits them, because although he has played defense most of this year, he's showed the most promise when he's forward. And I'll be honest, Dogs don't either forward unless they think he's going to be better than Jamarra, which is another thing. They would know better than me. I think Jamarra is a better prospect than Darcy, and I think him and Norton, Jamarra Ugle-Hagan and Aaron Norton, that is so hot. That is unguardable. And then you Cody Waitman's picking up the crumbs. That's a crazy forward line for the future Dogs fans. You got to keep that together. You got to keep that together, Bevo. So if they do end up matching a bid for Darcy, which I would think they would, just given how much hype is around him, I would say he'll probably turn into a transition defender. And to me, that probably lowers his value a bit for the Dogs. As a defender, again, I'm going to use this word again. He's very raw. Not in the same sense that category B rookie, who's big Roo. What's I forgot his name, escapes me. You guys know who I'm talking about, who just got signed to Collingwood. Not that sort of raw. He still has a really good skill set, and has the foundations to be a star. But he needs a lot of development, and it might be a year before we actually see him play a game of AFL, depending on where he's drafted. If he does go to the Dogs, I think it could be 1.5, maybe 2 years before we actually see him play AFL. that's just a couple of things I wanted to talk about. Just a couple of things that are on my mind. I'll release this video. Well, obviously you'll see this. I shouldn't explain this really because you'll be watching it and you'll know what's happened. But I think I'll release this in full on my YouTube channel, and then I'll split this into 2 parts and release it on IGTV. I think that's what I'll do, just so it can be shared around. What else do I want to talk about? Anything else I want to talk about? Probably not. I'll come back to it. I think that'll just about wrap it up for Showtime Footy today. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. It's been a hot minute since I've done one of these. Probably going to be a hot minute before I do another one, just because year 12, it's a thing. And it's hard work, you know. I should probably be doing homework right now, but footy, you know. Want to let stuff out, so let's do it. I'll probably, for my cricket listeners and watchers, I'll probably release a video of recaps on Australia v West Indies when that comes around, or maybe even I'll do England v Pakistan. I'll see how I'm feeling. Maybe even Zimbabwe, Bangladesh. Maybe Zimbabwe, Bangladesh. I kind of like that. Pretty cool match. Again, thank you all so much for watching and listening. This has been Big Swing Noting Podcast. Play it through.